Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time, in a small kingdom, there was a king and queen who was celebrating their baby princess's first birthday. They were quite fond of the princess, so much that they hosted a grand party for her. Even though the baby princess was very young, she understood that her parents truly adored her. The three magical fairies were also invited to the party. They gifted the princess with the essence of love and beauty. However, as the third fairy was just about to give her gift, someone had interrupted the party. Why, hello there. Why, it was the evil fairy. I was wondering, why was I not invited to the princess's party? For this treachery, I will cast a spell on her. On the princess's 16th birthday, she will prick her finger on a spindle and die. Well then, toodaloo. The king and queen were horrified by the evil fairy's prophecy. However, the third fairy have yet to offer her a gift. She promises the king and queen that the princess will not die on her 16th birthday. Instead, she will go to sleep, and so will the rest of the kingdom. She prophesies that a prince will someday come to save the entire kingdom. To prevent the evil witch's prophecy from coming true, the king declared that every spinning wheel found within the kingdom must be destroyed. And so, 15 years later, just as the fairies had gifted, the princess was quite lovely and beautiful. She was also quite talented as well. At an early age, she learned how to play the organ. She played it so well that she now does live shows for her people. The princess also learned how to bake cakes and was considered the greatest baker in all of the kingdom. The princess's painting skills is a work in progress, but there is no doubt that her skills will eventually improve. One evening, as the princess was taking her nap, the evil fairy magically appeared in her room. To ensure that the princess's death will be met with certainty, she places the spinning wheel in her bedside. Finally, I will have my revenge. Not long after the evil fairy leaves the room, the princess awakes from her nap. What is this? The princess wondered. Out of curiosity, she investigates the spinning wheel. Unfortunately, she felt a sharp pain on her finger, and she eventually felt tired. So she goes back to bed and goes to sleep. The king and queen fell into despair when they found the princess sleeping in her room. They knew that this day would come, and so they summoned the magical fairies. As the kingdom mourned for the princess, the fairies decided that the kingdom should be put to sleep as well. In order for the kingdom to be awakened again, a brave prince will come and break the evil fairy's spell. The fairies hope that someday that they will meet that prince and help him guide the way. As the years went on, the plants and flowers surrounding the castle has grown exponentially. However, Nothing and no one residing in the castle would ever age, as if time has stopped for them. And throughout those years, as the princess slept, she was still just as beautiful and ageless. One day, the princess dreamt that she had met a handsome prince in the forest. After spending some time together, they quickly fell in love and vowed that someday that they would meet. In another faraway kingdom, a young prince was caught sleeping in the library. He was soon awakened by his father's scolding voice. The young prince was tired of his father's expectations and constant scolding. After being reprimanded for sleeping in the library, the prince decides that he would go on a far journey and find the princess from his dream. The prince knew that his place is with the princess, so he prepared for his long, arduous journey, never intending to return home. After preparations were complete, he strolls through the kingdom for one last time before leaving on his journey. The prince somehow knew that he was destined to be with that princess from his dream, and so begins his journey. As the prince traveled, he encountered many new strange places, and he persevered through unforgivable weather. He traveled for many months and marked all the places he's been to on a map. When he lived in the kingdom, he was never allowed to go outside, so going on this travel was exciting for him. Eventually, the prince started to feel worn out. One day, as he was treading through snowy mountains, he encountered 3 mysterious butterflies. How is it possible for butterflies to be around these parts? The prince wondered. And then suddenly, the butterflies became fairies. The prince wondered how this was possible. The fairies explained to the prince that he would help them find his sleeping princess. However, the prince must defeat an evil fairy that had placed the sleeping curse on her. The prince agreed to help and asked him to guide the way. The fairies soon turned back into butterflies and led the prince to his princess. After arriving at the princess's castle, he was surprised to find that the plants and flowers had taken over. And then suddenly, he encountered the evil fairy. You may enter the castle, but be warned, I will destroy you. The prince ignored the evil fairy's warning, and he vowed to save the princess. I warned you. Now you must die. The evil fairy turns herself into a hideous dragon. The prince showed no fear and defeated the dragon. After defeating the dragon, he went to search for his princess. He finally finds her in her room. Recognizing that she was the princess from his dream, he leaned in and kissed her. The princess finally wakes to see her beloved prince. The princess wondered who was the one that had broken the spell. After taking a good long look at the prince that had saved her life, she realizes it was the same prince from her dream. The prince and the princess were both falling in love all over again. Their reunion reminded them of the time they spent together in their dreams. The prince then immediately proposed to the princess, and she agreed to marry him. The princess soon was reunited with the king and queen. She introduced the prince to the king and queen, and the king immediately approved of their love. The king and queen quickly planned their wedding. The next day, they immediately had the wedding ceremony. The wedding was held in a forest where the prince and the princess first met in their dream. This was the happiest day of everyone's lives. But the happiest people of all were the prince and the princess. And so, at last, the prince and the princess and the rest of the kingdom all lived happily ever after.